Hello and welcome back to the Spiritual and Mind channel. If you're new, welcome and thank you for joining me. My name is Brandy Nicole, and here on the channel we focus on mindset, mental health, and spiritual health. And the hot topic as of late has been about celibacy. And I don't know if anyone has seen the ad. I think I'll try and insert it into my my thumbnail, the Bumble ad about celibacy. So that is kind of what got me interested in making this video, is just to talk about the benefits of celibacy and singleness and all of the ways that you can utilize that space. Because a lot of times folks will be maybe more interested in a relationship, but there's two kinds of relationships, or maybe even three. So there's unhealthy relationships because the intention is just the relationship versus being in a comfortable place for a relationship. There's healthy relationships that are settled and flow really well, and there's not a lot of tension or trauma or drama. And then there's, the relationships that kind of live in the middle, the middle ground of that. And that's just a simple way of describing it. I am a holistic mental health therapist and a wellness coach, and I work with clients all the time around relationship and self-health as well. So I just want to talk through the benefits of celibacy because I think there's a lot of great benefits to it. I think there's a lot of great benefits to being single. And I would say that I'm not exclusively a fan of singleness for the sake of singleness, saying that marriage and relationship are bad things. I don't believe that. I believe marriage and relationship can be good things, but they have to exist within the realm of health. So if it's for the sake of having it no matter what, then it's not healthy or useful. That's how I feel anyway. If it is healthy and productive, then great. Go for it. Have all the love you can handle. But if it's like toxic, I just want to be in a relationship so that way I can be in a relationship because I don't want to be alone kind of thing, that's not serving any real value, and it's actually limiting the likelihood of like self-development and access to healthy connections in a lot of ways. So I feel like the Bumble ad really got me thinking more about the benefits of celibacy. So I'm going to go through them here, and I encourage us all to kind of use the lens of, have we tried it? Do we know this for sure? So if you have not tried something, it's very difficult for you to say it does not work. A lot of folks will quickly say, no, I could never, I'm not the type. But if you haven't tried it, you don't really know. And sometimes we give ourselves these identities and rules when they don't actually have to exist, and we can easily undo that association if we so dared. So I'm gonna go ahead and kick off, but I just want to have us frame in on asking yourself, have we tried these things? Do we know how they actually feel? Would we agree or disagree? I invite you to leave comments in the comments section telling me your feedback and tell me what you think. Okay, so the first benefit, I wrote these things down, so I'm looking at my notes. The first benefit that I find from celibacy and singleness is that you get more energy and focus to pour into yourself. When you are celibate and single, you actually have more time and attention and energy to focus in on yourself and what you enjoy, what you need, what you don't need, to explore your interests and to have the time to do so. So normally in a relationship, you have to share your time or split your time, and compromise sometimes on your time, because there's a whole person connected to some portion of your time. Not all your time ideally, but normally relationships take time as well. So that is something that's usually multitasked when you're in a relationship. That isn't multitasked when you're single and celibate. So I also added that you can cultivate the best you without distraction. So that's a pretty powerful thing too, is just having the space of not being distracted. And if you're in a healthy, happy relationship, you can be in a healthy, happy relationship without distraction, or with some level of balance, I would say, because you still have to attend that relationship. So on some level, there is the opportunity to move beyond that relationship to focus on yourself when you are celibate and single. Celibate and single. There we go. Let's see what else here. So, second thing is being celibate and single helps you date with intention. So, being celibate and single isn't like a rule that you don't want to date or can't date. I mean, I think eventually if your goal is relationship or marriage, you'd have to date. So you ideally can still date if you so choose to. And it actually gives you the space to date with more intention of what is it that you're actually wanting, and does this person I'm dating match that? Why am I dating? What is it that I'm trying to look for or connect with in another person? So I think there's some benefits of like having more intention when you're single and celibate, because if you don't have to factor in actual physical intimacy, then you have an opportunity to focus on emotional intimacy and to actually spend more time getting to know a person and being known as well. When a lot of folks go into intimate connections too soon, there's still a lot of the person you don't actually know, because the intimate relationship starts to take more of a precedence over the emotional connection in most cases. I won't say all cases, but most cases. That is what happens when our physical biology is activated. Our attention starts to multitask that, which means we have to accost on some level some other areas of connection that would otherwise exist. So that's why, it's ideal to be waiting to access physical connection, because you would limit the opportunity you have to really connect with someone more deeply beyond physicality. Item number 3, if you are then dating with intention, you also are reducing that desperation. And I'm not saying every person who's having physical intimacy with a person while dating is desperate, but there can be an element of emotional impulse or need of validation, we'll say, of participating in the ideal of a relationship. So there can be some desperation to actually fulfill that part of ourself, or I don't know, desperation sounds kind of heavy, but like, let's say a need or a want or a craving versus desperation. I like that better. So like there could be a craving to meet the expectation. So meeting and rushing into that sense of expectation of relationship, because there's a lot of social pressure to be in relationship in the traditional model of man, woman, 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 man, man, whatever, and other variations of gender and gender assignment. That's not pronouns, all that stuff, like whatever. I don't want to get lost in that. And I'm not slighting anyone's like identity. I'm just saying like that's not the part I'm trying to hold on to here. What I'm trying to hold on to here is like presenting the ideal of relationship. There's a lot of social pressure to present the ideal of relationship and to meet that ideal. So I like that better than saying desperation. So you can cultivate a healthy relationship or get to know people without the pressure of trying to meet that standard, if that makes sense. Okay, item number 3. You get more time to do what you want, and you have 100% choice in doing what you want. So a lot of times in actual relationships, there is a compromise on time in order to attend the relationship, but there's also a compromise on interest in some ways. And that's why it's really important to be in relationships where the goals of the relationship are ideal and in line with the person you choose to be in a relationship with. Otherwise, you might find that you will feel more of a risk around choice. If you're in a relationship with someone who has a similar path and set of goals in the relationship as yourself, then there's less of a risk of like feeling like you're losing anything in the choice department, or feeling like there's a high compromise element in the relationship. But when you're single and celibate, you don't have to ask anyone. If you want to move to Mexico in a year, you can do that. If you want to invest financially in things, you can do that. You don't have a person that is going to need to be a part of that decision-making process. As a single celibate person, you are free to do your things as long as your finances are in the place or your decision-making is in the place for you to handle things independently. It's all yours to do. So that can be a really great benefit too. Another benefit of singleness and celibacy is it helps you to avoid situationship behaviors and surface attachments. So this is meeting beyond the honeymoon phase of impressions. So what I mean when I say that is you don't have to necessarily be, I don't know, in the orchestration or the presentation of being in a relationship without actually having one. And I guess the best way to describe this is there's a lot of people walking around in marriages that are unhealthy. And that's where you're presenting the idea of a relationship and that you have one, but it's not really happening. You know what I mean? So it's like the surface drama on the stage of this is me and the thing in the relationship, but it's not actually a really honest portrayal of what a relationship is meant to be. I mean, I guess all relationships have some truth to them, so they exist if they exist, but it's not the real thing, you know? So there's the difference of presenting a thing versus having the real thing, and that's what I'm trying to explain. So going beyond the honeymoon phase of impressions is another part of it. So when you start dating, my channel is primarily women, so I'm going to speak from that frame. But when you start dating, there's normatively a pattern when you're dating someone new where they present their impression of the impression that they'd like you to have to leave a good impression. But I don't like the idea of first impressions. I'd rather we just be ourselves. I think that saves everyone so much time. So if you're going to be in a connection, don't waste time with first impressions. Just show up as you actually are. That's a lot more valuable because then everyone knows what's what and everyone can make their decisions better. I think with dating, it's definitely geared more towards men to have like these ways of setting a good first impression. I think women are taught something a little bit different, but men are often taught to set a good first impression to like woo or win over a woman's interest. But I don't know if the folks teaching first impression are also teaching consistency. Like, are men even being taught this unless it's from a father figure, like a healthy father figure, healthy male role model? And as a therapist, I guess that's my lens. So I do have healthy role models and male role models and male figures in my life, but I don't know if that's like the common thing. Because of the work I do, I might have a little bit of a skew on that, but just in general, I feel like when we're taught to have this pattern of setting a good first impression, that's a waste of time because eventually it's not really teaching the right skill set. Because you could have a good first impression, but you can't maintain it unless you actually know how to do the more important thing, which is to build good character traits and sense of self. So having a good sense of self would create behavioral patterns of I'm this type of person. I'm not the type of person who creates good first impressions for the sake of winning people over, which can be a little manipulative, honestly. But I am the type of person who values consistency, who shows up for the things I care about, shows up for the people I care about, that sort of thing. And there's definitely men in my life who are able to do that, and there are men in the world who exist that way. But a lot of times with dating, there's a lot more of a pattern of trying to create this first impression situation, and then people kind of can't maintain it because it's not the root of sustainability to create a first impression, because what happens after that, right? So I'm sorry, I really don't like the ideal of first impressions. I think they're silly. Okay, so the next thing that I find really helpful regarding celibacy is the spiritual peace outside of marriage. So celibacy is ultimately not having physical intimacy with someone outside of marriage. I believe a lot of times, I mean, there are some folks who will practice celibacy for a window of time and then close their celibacy journey as well. But I think there's some spiritual peace of just really not allowing those kind of physical exchanges to happen, where soul ties can be created and trauma bonds can be created. And I just think, celibacy is a window of really doing deeper spiritual work often. If you're interested in that, not everyone takes a vow of celibacy for the sake of their relationship with their spiritual health, but it can be a great facet of that. Another thing that I think is really valuable, item number 6, is your physical health and freedom and feeling of confidence that your physical health is safe and secure, because a lot of times with physical intimacy, it's ideal that you be taking your proper safety measures of like STD testing, sexual health testing, and that sort of thing. Also, taking time to make sure that you have a family plan of, I can't think of the word, but like basically where it's family planning and like what type of birth control and stuff you want to use. So there's a lot of pieces to that, but also prevention and like the intimacy partners you choose, making sure that they're safe and safe for you and all that stuff. So there's a lot of extra physical health elements that come in when you are not practicing celibacy and potentially in the frame of dating more casually and maybe dating more than one person, even if you only are intimate with one person at a time or for a season. There's still like the elements of the maintenance of all of that and all of the things that how your body might respond. So there are some layers to your physical health, and when you practice celibacy, you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So it's quite effective, just to like allow your physical being to be more calm and predictable and safe with a sense of confidence. Okay, another item. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this one says limit of relational depth. So, like, you actually get to increase your relational depth with others, which means like you get to connect more deeply with people. When there's no expectation of a physical exchange, you actually get to know people better because there's no clock ticking on the other thing. So you can just actually get to know the person in front of you without being distracted with the stopwatch in the background of the connection. So that can be pretty powerful too, of just getting beyond like the surface connection and dating someone where like eventually there's going to be this part of the dating experience where there's the question of, or the expectation of, or what have you, because you're meeting someone where you have to presume to have a conversation at some point about expectations and about how another person's dating style operates and what they expect or don't expect, or what you expect and what you don't expect. As a therapist, this is something that often comes into client sessions where I'm helping a client who is dating to normalize that conversation, because if you're dating someone and you don't know how they like to date, what their preferences are, or what they expect or don't expect from the dating experience, you're kind of being a passenger in your own experience at that point. So I think it's really valuable to be having that conversation. But if you're celibate, you don't really need to have that conversation beyond a certain point, because in dating you can express, your beliefs. And then that's that until but your beliefs should have a boundary too. So sidebar a little bit, your boundary should have a little bit or of a stopping point. So if you say you're celibate in general, that's fine, but it's sometimes nice to be clear on like what that means and sharing about what that means, but also if you're celibate to the point of marriage, to also be clear on that. So kind of like what that means, what your celibacy means, like how people can best understand that, so that way there's clarity as much as would be reasonable. But lots of conversation is a healthy thing about your perspective, expectations, and boundaries in dating. Okay. Another thing that I have here is item 8, reduction of emotional anxiety and people-pleasing behaviors. Again, just kind of talking about the invisible clock or stopwatch in the room. When you're dating, there's a lot of times where I think this has come up more for women than men. I don't know exactly. I definitely work with men, but more women definitely in my practice. But there's a lot more of a concern about what is going to have to be traded off to continue to retain the connection, to continue to retain the attention, the affection, the time that's being afforded and when dating. So there's like this veil of a relationship, if that's how you are approaching it, as far as like the relationship has a stopping point unless XYZ. And a relationship is a bit of a, I don't know, like an agreement to invest the time and energy in the relationship. But you want to make sure that you're on the same page about what the investment is for you, because sometimes I have had client sessions with folks who are fearful of the day coming in the dating experience where the man tries to make an advance, tries to initiate physical intimacy in some way without the person I'm speaking with having proper time to either communicate their expectations or fear of communicating their expectations and all of that stuff. But I think that's where we're living in the veil of a relationship again versus the truth of a relationship. The truth of a relationship requires that you can have these conversations. The truth of a relationship requires that you should be able to say these things when dating people. You should be able to set your expectations. You should be able to set your boundaries. You should be able to understand and hear their expectations too, versus trying to avoid it. I really feel like if we're going to be adults dating, we have to have that skill. It's a very basic thing. And it's kind of tough because no one's necessarily teaching this to any middle schooler or any young adult. So I get how we got there, but I do find it to be such a confusing thing to be an adult dating, but being afraid to say what your boundaries are, being afraid to say what your actual expectations are. So I do think that this warrants more time and attention for us all if we're going to be dating. And I don't expect perfection here, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes we have to really think about what we're saying we're ready for. So if we're ready to date, we should be able to have these kind of conversations. If we're ready to be intimate, we should be able to have conversations about intimacy, right? So to me, I always find it fascinating when people say they want to be in a relationship, but they don't want to do the thing that is a part of being in a relationship. We have to take the whole thing if we want the thing, not just the parts that come easy. I'm human too. I get it. But we have to aspire and try. That's all I'm saying. We have to aspire and try. Okay. Item number 10. I think I just did 8. Okay, yeah, I just did 8. So number 9 was it reduces impulsive patterns. It improves your patience, and it gives you more presence. So the 9th benefit is reducing impulsive patterns to do things that are rushed or emotions first behaviors or reactive behaviors. It improves your patience and allows you to slow things down, to pay more attention to what's actually going on, and to stay in good balance with yourself. But also it increases your sense of presence because you're in the real time of things versus the idea of things. And I love the conversation of the idea of relationship versus the truth of relationship, the cost and the real thing versus the idea, because the idea of relationship is sensationalized and being marketed to all of us in different ways, but it's not the exact real thing most of the time from what we're seeing and what we're being told to see. So I think it's really important to practice celibacy and consider what can be gained there as far as like understanding with patience and presence and, you know, slowing down our impulses to really see the whole of things and the truth of things versus the distraction of things and the ideal of things. Words. Okay, the 10th item here would be clarity, confidence, peace, communication, and relief. So when you're practicing celibacy, you definitely get more clarity. You're more dialed into what's actually happening versus the distraction and ideal of what's happening. You definitely get more confidence because you're coming into this self-trust place where you don't have to self-abandon, you don't have to go by anyone else's rules, and you don't have an ulterior motive of connecting with someone to gain attention or to gain, I don't know, dates or to gain time or affection or whatever, because you learn how to instill your emotional needs in a way where those things are accounted for, and the person you choose to date or spend time with is in front of you as a person that you're connecting with more authentically, because you're not seeking externally something that you access internally. So a lot of times with dating and connection, we mirror what we'd like to see and gain from another person without giving it to ourselves first. So celibacy helps us to actually build that skill set of being fully equipped within, emotionally speaking, to center on ourselves and be secure within ourselves. And then when we date and, you know, go on, ideally if marriage is the goal, then we have that skill to bring that healthy version of ourselves to relationship, should we choose to be in one, or should we choose to, you know, go for the goal of marriage. So that's confidence. Peace, because you know what you're looking for. There's no confusion about what you're looking for. When you're celibate, you have more clarity of what you're looking for. So it's a peaceful place to be as you kind of decide what else is, you know, coming in front of you, because you can still meet people, you can still date, but you understand what you want and what you don't want. So there's a lot of peace in that. Communication. You get a lot of opportunities to actually communicate, to understand people and to be understood without getting distracted or lost, and it helps you to be consistent. So like you become consistent with celibacy because your communication ideally is consistent, as long as you have found a value to it, as long as you understand like why you're choosing to do this and who is this for, why is this really happening, why are you selecting this approach. And then relief. Celibacy provides a lot of relief because there's no extra stuff spinning, and if there is, it's stuff that you can undo because it's a space where you can have peace and calm, and relief is definitely a part of that as well. So these are the 10 things that I feel are amazing for celibacy and singleness. And I definitely feel the Bumble ad just really put it on my mind, and I was like flabbergasted that was real. So I don't know if you've seen the ad, but I'll try and put it in the thumbnail so you can check it out. And definitely leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Have you ever tried celibacy before? If so, did you enjoy it? Are you enjoying it? What are your questions? And of course, you know, some people may not believe in it or not wish for celibacy to be a thing, but the Bible says, you know, that this is probably a good way to go, and I think God has it correct. So that's my stance on it. And I just want to say thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. I hope that you've enjoyed this session, and I will look forward to catching you in the next episode of Spiritual Mind. Be sure to check the description to see more about what I offer here on the channel and anything else. Feel free to sign up for the newsletter. I share information there pretty much almost every week. Sometimes I miss a week here or there, but you're welcome to join me in the newsletter if you found this helpful and useful, where I continue the Better Life series there as well. So take great care. I will catch you in the next episode of Spiritual Mind. Be well. Give this video a thumbs up. Show some love. Show some support. And I will catch you in the next one. See you then.